Hi, welcome to the Drama Free Living podcast. Lisa, this is our fourth episode in the whole communication competencies. And if you haven't downloaded the checklist, it's there for you, really a self-assessment for you to build your own personalized roadmap for improvement, sort of decide, this is where I really am, and where do I want to go with my communication and my competencies?
Because really, when you can communicate well, you can collaborate even better, and the creativity can go through the roof. What was the thing that Steve Jobs said?
Well, he said creativity is really making connections. And he said, well, what is it when you're really creative? He says, making a lot of connections. And so this ability to connect, and at the foundation is care. And so we took the first two in this series and talked about how do you care and connect. And now these last two, the last one and this one, we really want to talk about how do you provide a sense of clarity and go through conflict, right? Because it's not all just kumbaya and just making connections, but it's also stepping in and having some of these hard, difficult conversations.
And today we're talking more on the accountability side, more the call to action side of communication. And these are competencies that are part of your communication competencies and the 25 skills.
Yeah, and part of where we got some of these ideas was from a book, People Fuel by John Townsend. So we'll put a link in the show notes so you can go get your copy. And this is really partly just our take on some of those ideas and how we've applied it, and it's made a huge difference.
We've taken a deep dive. We've taken a deep dive into these concepts and these principles and to try to deepen our communication as a team, to deepen our communication and creativity with our clients and even with each other in our marriage and in our family.
Yeah. So let's just kind of walk through some of these, maybe more clarity skills
And with this,
okay.
this is really helping people have agency, helping people have
what do you mean by that?
Okay, so agency is the ability to engage in a behavior to achieve something that you really desire. So if you have high agency, you have a high ability to engage in a certain behavior to achieve the desire that you want. So if you have a high level of agency in communication and collaboration, which is what we're talking about increasing your agency in the area of communication and collaboration, which increases your creativity and allows you to achieve a desire that you are searching for, that you're really going after.
It's almost the ability to have the right behavior, right? So I'm responsible for my behavior and I have agency so I can make changes. I can change my behavior. I can step in and do the hard things because when what's fascinating is when I don't feel like I have agency, I feel like, I play the victim.
Absolutely.
It's very easy to play the victim when I don't feel like I have a sense of agency. And so stepping in, and that's the truth. All of us, we all have agency. You have agency. Okay, so your life can be different. So we want to
increase your agency in these areas of communication and collaboration. And today we're talking about the aspect of accountability, call to action.
Yep. And
so what's our first one?
Yeah, first one is advice. And this is really recommending an action step. Now, here's the problem. The problem many times is when people bring you things, and Lisa, have you ever gotten advice?
Never.
Okay, well, guys, we're done with that. This podcast is done. Thanks for being with us. No, right? No, I mean, I know this has happened. This has happened in our relationship, right? Where you came and you wanted connection, and I immediately gave you advice.
Absolutely. Or you come and you want advice, and all you get is connection.
Right.
You walk away feeling, And we talked about in the first two podcasts, we talked about it's playing basketball with a flat ball, and you go to dribble that ball, and it goes thump, 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 and you can't get anywhere with it, and you certainly can't have a game.
Yeah. So, Lisa, I had this experience happen a couple weeks ago. So I'm training for another half marathon. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I was on this long run. And about halfway through the long run, I get this phone call, and it's from a person that I desperately need to talk to, a person that's very hard to get a hold of. And I knew if I didn't take his call, it probably would have been weeks before I would have ever gotten a hold of him. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to stop in the middle of my long run and just take this call. Right. And so I just stopped running and I just picked up the phone and I says, hey, thanks for calling. I am so glad you called. I'm in the middle of a long run and I'm just glad to be done. You have given me an excuse to stop running. And he immediately said, Dennis, he says, you need to stop running. You need to strength train. You need to do weight training. He says, running's just and he just gave me all of this advice. And listen, I'm on the other end of the line and I'm feeling a little irritated. I'm feeling annoyed. Right. And
because that was not what you were wanting at the time, and he was right. I mean,
that's
you
the
need
thing.
to you need to strength train. But that wasn't what your focus was at that time. At this time, your focus was, hey, I'm doing this half marathon. I'm also strength training. I'm also doing these other things.
Yeah,
But
right. I agreed with him, but I wasn't asking for advice, and really, it was a bid for connection, right?
Yes.
What I needed at the time was encouragement. But what I got was advice.
Right.
But you know what I realized? Most of the irritants in my relationships are typically when I'm getting a competency that I'm not really wanting at the time.
And the other person, it doesn't have the discernment to realize, hey, the ball is flat when I just dribbled it, and obviously something's going on here, and I think I'm giving them the wrong competency right now in this communication.
Yeah, being able to back up. But also I think it's very powerful when you realize, hey, this is what I need right now, right? You realize, hey, this emotion, this irritation, annoyance, bother, it's information. It's telling me a story about something that I have a need that I'm not getting met. And so a lot of times this question that we've got really good at asking is like, hey, what do you need from me right now?
Absolutely. And that is exactly what I was going to say is how powerful would it have been for you to be on the phone with him and say, I appreciate that. You are absolutely right. But what I need from you right now is just tell me, hey, great job for going after that.
Yeah.
And because that's truly what your bid for connection was.
Yeah. And so this whole idea of advice, right? And we need advice. There's times where you have to step in. Now, here's a great question that we've taught leaders to ask is simply when people bring you things, you ask them, do you want support or do you want a solution? Yeah. Right? So if you want support, we need to go back to the care and connection competencies and go, okay, how can I give support by showing care and connection? But if you need a solution, then I can go to these more conflict and clarity competencies and give you one of those competencies and really help meet that need in a very powerful way.
And we talked about that a lot more in our course, Emotionally Intelligent. We talked about the support or solutions, but there are 3 different levels of asking that question. There's asking it more from a personal relationship side.
Yeah.
There's asking for that and how to communicate them more as a peer, and then also how to communicate that in a very professional setting. And if you want to learn more about that, you can get our course, Emotionally Intelligent, and it'll dive deeper into that.
Yeah. So here's some pitfalls with kind of giving advice, right? Because it can be very tricky. It's needed, but I think you don't assume you fully understand someone's situation.
Right.
Okay, because everybody's context is a little different. So you really want to understand the context, consider that context, consider their experiences, consider their current situation, and then allow the content, the advice to fit the context. How many times does the content not fit the context and then it's not received and it's not helpful, right? And then I think another pitfall is this lack of empathy. And I think you always want to validate people and kind of at least go to that care and connection competency and validate them before you give them advice. Right? Because, when this person was giving me advice, Lisa, the funny thing was I agreed with it.
Absolutely.
Right? It was
great advice.
And it was totally true. I didn't think it wasn't true, but at the time, that's not what I needed. And I think, being very careful to not be judgmental, right? This is where some of these other, affirmation and some of these other competencies to step in first. And then I think one thing really powerful is assuming one size fits all. Right? Because different people have different strategies. Well, different people have different gifts. They have different abilities. They have a different vision. Right? And there's so many ways to build a team and to lead a team, and you got to make it fit you like a glove. And so realize that sometimes, my advice comes from my context. And, I think it's really important for leaders just to not be so black and white. Hey, you always do this, or right? It's like, hey, in my opinion, here's what happened for me, and let me share what happened for me, and here's what I did, and maybe you can use something like that instead of here's what you need to do. Because not one size fits all. And just because it works for you does not mean it's going to work for me.
Absolutely. And then another aspect of just kind of this accountability or this call to action is structure. And this is really just providing a framework. So we need help in all different ways, and we need to be able to have conversations in different ways. And sometimes we are just needing someone to help us put structure to an environment. It could be structure to a project. It could be structure to a situation in life. And there's a lot of different ways that you can help someone provide structure. One of the ways to help someone provide structure and help them provide a framework is really just by habits. You have all of these different habits. There's the book, The Miracle Morning. There's all of these different habits that you can build into your life to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish, to have a greater sense of agency, to have a greater capability of agency in your life. And so that key thing would be habits. Another way that you could encourage someone in helping them build a framework would be boundaries. There are boundaries in your lives. And Doctors Cloud and Townsend have some great books on boundaries that you can read, and they can boundaries with yourself, boundaries with your kids, boundaries in the workplace. If you need help putting more structure and framework and boundaries, these are the walls that I'm going to build, and some of them move a little bit, and others you need to keep them hard and fast. And it just depends on where you're at and the need that you have in your life right now, where you're wanting to accomplish. Another way of putting structure would be having someone help you with your values and priorities. Because sometimes it's just a matter of realizing that my value for a great work-life balance is wonderful, but I'm not actually living it out because I'm not putting, asserting those into my life and
sometimes
asserting those
people,
values
right,
into
because
my life.
change is a team sport. We need some help with that, right? We need some support with setting the structure. I'm thinking of a particular team member that they were the right team member and they were just kind of floundering in their goals. And I said, okay, listen, this not forever, but for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we are going to have a daily call. It's a 5-minute stand-up daily call. You're going to give me what you're going to do today, and I'm going to give you some feedback. And it was just super helpful. And it was just a quick structure that focused this team member's brain on the top 3 priorities because there were so many things to do and so many moving pieces, so many balls in the air. They were having trouble knowing how to prioritize. And that's where sometimes it's like we have to step in and, have this direct conversation. We're going to provide some structure. This is what it's going to look like. And they found it super helpful, and it kind of got them back on the right track.
Absolutely, because that's what this structure and what providing frameworks is all about. It's really about this aspect of accountability, and it's the how-to of the goals. And sometimes we just need another person. We talked about in a previous podcast just about having insight, and insight and structure go hand in hand.
Yeah, they really go well together.
They go well together, and it's providing someone from the outside helping us just to set up the accountability, set up the goals to be able to accomplish what we want and increase our agency.
Yeah, and so the next one we want to talk about is challenge, is competency of challenge. And this is strongly recommending in a difficult action, right? Just strong recommendation, almost.
You need to, or you've got to.
Now here's the thing. This works well with people that have a very direct style. Right, because sometimes people
both the person that's delivering and the person that's receiving.
Right, so if I'm receiving it, because sometimes if I'm a direct style, I need to hear it in a direct way, or it's confusing. Like, okay, what did they really say? It's like, hey, it would be nice if you would. And
just tell me what you want.
Tell me what
I got to do.
Right, tell me what I got to do. Right, and so sometimes you got to step in, and it's also useful in breaking unhealthy patterns. Sometimes habits that are really ingrained, you need like a more powerful force to step in. It could be an intervention. I mean, how many times is an intervention? And sometimes it could be a group. It's like, hey, the 3 of us are going to.
Those tend to be kind of shocking. It's
they do.
Whoa, okay, that got my attention.
But they're very helpful. It's, I needed that challenge to be able to see it. And you think about some styles that are so direct, it's like they need a challenge, almost like they need you to say, hey, that's impossible. You can't do it. Right? If you tell me that's impossible, then you'll never do that. Guess that's the very thing that I want to try to figure out how to do.
But on the flip side, if you tell someone, like I was thinking of a call that you had with someone, and you told them, hey, that's impossible. You can't do it. And he was like, you're right. I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then it was realizing, okay, he is not as direct as he comes across. He presents as a very direct individual, but really who he is internally is not direct at all.
It was the wrong competency for that context.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's where you just got to read the context, right?
It's like, okay, shoot, I dribbled that ball and it was flat. Let me back up and switch out. I need a different ball.
Yeah. And I think that's where agency comes in, because I have all these different competencies that I can bring to bear. And if one doesn't work, I'm just going to step in and try to use another one, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying to connect so that we're more collaborative and more creative, get results even faster. And this could kind of also help with like addressing ethical dilemmas. Yeah. Right? Like, confronting wrongdoing, where we just got to step in and go, this is wrong and this is why. And, just being very secure in that. So challenge can be a great competency to kind of get people's attention, kind of a wake-up call.
And then you can also challenge in a softer way.
Yeah.
Challenges don't have to be so direct and harsh. It can be a more gentle challenge. It's still a challenge, but knowing who the receiver is, or even if that's your personal style, knowing that that's just how you are. And then that means if you have a personal style of being maybe more gentle or soft, the best ones for you to communicate would be those ones that is their style as well.
And that's why we talk so much about in emotional intelligence, about that idea of tone, right? Because if you come in with the wrong tone and the wrong tempo, then it really does not work well.
And we deal with that a lot between you and I, because you tend to have a lot stronger, faster tone and tempo, and I tend to have a slower, softer tone and tempo. And so if there is a disconnect in our relationship, a lot of times it has to go back to, okay, who is the one that had the bid for connection?
Right.
Who is the one that was asking for the bid for connection? Because like this morning, I presented a bid for connection, and you initially started out with a faster, stronger tone and tempo. And then I had to back up and I was like, wait a minute. It was my bid for connection, and this is what I need now.
Right. And when you were able to say, hey, this is what I need right now, it brought me, okay, that's what she needs. Okay, I can meet that need.
And you were able to slow down your tone and your tempo.
Yeah, and this is just getting really good at just knowing you too. So even these competencies, like, listen, we want to just encourage you, not just to get good at these different competencies of delivering them, but also get good at knowing what you need and just expressing it. Hey, what I need from you right now is blank. Because everybody in the world has the right to ask for what they need or they want. You do. But you don't always have the right to demand it from me.
And just because you ask for that doesn't mean that I'm required to give it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, this is all within bounds of what is appropriate in the relationship.
Yeah, because different relationships have different levels of connection.
Absolutely.
So altruism, Lisa, you want to
altruism.
cover that?
Okay. Yeah. Altruism really is it's service. It's guiding engagement to giving back. Now, there are some companies that they are just so incredible. They provide opportunities for their employees to give to each other. They provide opportunities for the higher ups. Well, no, for the higher ups, more to mentor those that are coming in maybe in an internship, and that is altruism. There's also companies that do that really encourage community and engagement, and they'll even say, "Listen, you've got 10 hours a month, and I want 10 hours a month that we are paying you specifically for community engagement." That means you're not working on the company or in the company. That means you're giving that time to your local YMCA and you're teaching
basket weaving.
Basket weaving at your local YMCA. But then there's also companies that do giving campaigns and different ways that they give to their clients. And there's all different ways that you can develop altruism within your organization, your company, your family. But studies show, this is what's so important, is studies show that the brain gets happy and more productive when we're engaged in altruism.
Interesting.
Like the brain actually, your brain smiles. Did you know your brain can smile? Your brain actually gets happy.
My face is frowning, my brain is smiling right now.
Well, I don't know about that. So, but when we do something for someone else and we do it without getting something back and we do it just because they need it, right? Then it releases oxytocin in our system and our brain starts to smile, and it's a mood elevator. And that mood elevator, it just makes us feel more hopeful.
Hey.
Now, this is a chemical thing that goes on in our body, this whole altruism. And so what happens is we do good, so then we feel good. So then we want to do good again. And
it's like this cycle.
It's a cycle of engagement and satisfaction and engage. And what it does is it's a way that we're created to continue to want to give to other people because we feel good. And studies have shown, this is fascinating, studies have shown that compassionate work, leads to a climate based on altruism, which indirectly increases firm performance by means of organizational resilience. So if you want a resilient organization, if you want to increase your firm performance, then build this climate of altruism, of compassionate work, of a climate that's just based on giving to other people, even if they don't ask for it, and even if you can't get something back. This does not work if it is reciprocal, like I'm doing this for you, so you're doing this for me. It's not, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. That's not where this oxytocin really comes in. Now it can, but really for the most part, it is just being a good person and doing something good.
Well, it almost goes back to, you always reap what you sow, but you never necessarily reap where you sow. Right? So it's going to come back to you, but you don't look for it to the person that you're giving it to, but it'll come back to you. And it's kind of this law of the farm is that whatever you sow, you reap. Your harvest in life is dependent on the seeds that you sow. And so it's this whole idea. It's fascinating. And
yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And so this is an aspect of communication. It's an aspect of collaboration and creativity, is this cultivating altruism in your environment. Now, cultivating altruism in your environment, whether you're the CEO or a mid-level manager, or even if it's within your family, you can increase happy brains and increase productivity, and also that just increases your creativity. And it's an essential element of communication.
It's amazing, right? And then the last one we want to kind of cover in this whole series is this idea, the competency of development. And this kind of creates this growth environment. And so one thing that happens typically, and maybe you do it, is that we set a lot of goals. Like we're coming into different times of the year where we set goals. And, we always set doing goals, but very few people set being goals, becoming goals, because who you become is really more powerful than what you do.
Well, what you do flows out of who you are.
Yeah. And so many times we set these goals and we wonder why we don't achieve them. Well, it's because you're not that kind of person yet.
You're not that person, right?
Right. And so it's like you have to become that person to be able to do those things. So, who do you want to become in the future? Like, what does your future look like, and what do you want to? But then, who do you need to become? And so, some suggestions are: we always encourage people don't neglect individual goals. Right? We have corporate goals, we have organizational goals. Right? Maybe I'm a part of a team. We have goals, but I also have individual goals. What are the things that you want to accomplish? Because really, goal setting is so personal. Right? Development is so personal. And becoming is so personal.
And with this communication and this aspect of communication is helping other people with their development and giving them those opportunities to develop themselves, because this is an aspect of these difficult conversations and these relationships that we have with each other.
Yeah, Lisa, and I'm just coming out of 2 days of workshops with a very large organization and they really had us come in to set these becoming goals. Right? They wanted their leaders to figure out who they wanted to become. And so we gave them some of these competencies and we gave them some of these, criteria, and they really set some great becoming goals. We went through mindsets. What kind of mindsets do they need to develop? And then what are things they're doing well that they need to upgrade? And what are things that they're not doing well? And these are all personal, right? And it's because when you get better, the organization gets better. Right? Our team gets better when individuals get better, right? Our team is a group of individuals. So I got to look out even at our team and go, okay, how do I make them a bigger, better person? Because they're going to contribute more. If you're bigger, you're going to be able to contribute more. And then it also, this whole idea of development, it creates this sense of personal accountability and responsibility, right? It's like you're responsible for your behavior. Right, you're responsible for who you
so
become.
Huge.
Right, you're responsible for your mindsets, how you think about things. And then I just want to encourage, maybe like you're leading an organization, we've done this before, is really provide adequate training programs, right? And sometimes you have to go outside of your organization. You have to send people to seminars or workshops or
bring someone to
right,
present
exactly.
a workshop or present a seminar to your team.
Yeah, and then I think at the core is that really personalize that support. Right, because I know with our team, different people have different learning styles, they have different gifts, they have different abilities. And so I always want to make sure that, they're in the right seat in the right on the bus, right? And then we're providing that support for that seat in a way that they can receive it. Because we're all different, we're all unique. And really, what I love about this, it honors the uniqueness of the individual. And really at the core of who we are at Leadership Development Group, it's about the uniqueness of the individual and creating training programs that are personalized and unique to their style and to their organization.
And it's really helping each person be the best individual, the best human that they can be with their soft skills and in their interpersonal skills and with their technical skills.
Yeah. And so listen, this has been fun. And if you haven't downloaded the Communication Competencies Checklist, it's 25 skills. We'll put a link there for you, and you can take this self-assessment, find out where you're at, and then build your own roadmap.
And that's totally free. Just if it'll help you, give it a try and see where you fall.
Yeah, it's been a great little tool that we've developed. And Lisa, for me, I'm thinking about what I need to work on as we're kind of walking through this last part here.
Not giving so much advice.
Yes. It's exactly
Is that what you were going to say?
Exactly what I was going to say. Because
I was joking.
No, I'm totally saying. And I think the key question that I'm going to get better and better at is just asking team members or people around me, hey, do you want support right now or do you want a solution?
Well, and I can
really
say part of why you are so good at giving advice, or that's kind of your go-to, is that's really why people come to you, is they come to you for your advice. And that's the value, or that's the contribution that you bring in so many different arenas, is the advice that you have, and also being able to pull advice out of other people for a third party that's in the room. And so it's kind of your go-to because it's one of your incredible competencies. It's one of your superpowers. But at the same time, there's the right moment for it.
Well, and it's almost like every constraint is in a competency overextended, right? I have a competency and I'm overextending it, and then it becomes this constraining factor.
And so then when you're trying to communicate with someone and you're giving advice and that basketball goes flat, you're like, oh, shoot, that was the wrong. In that situation, it became a constraint and kind of put a roadblock into what was the effectiveness of the collaboration.
Yeah, and people didn't really find it helpful. So, Lisa, for you, what was sort of your big takeaway?
I love it that my brain smiles. I mean, altruism and just the whole concept of oxytocin, and that when we do something for someone else that is unsolicited, or, well, not unsolicited, but they couldn't do for themselves, but they're not getting something back from it, that it's a part of how we're made as humans, that it releases this oxytocin in our system, which makes us feel really great, which makes us want to do it again. And when there's so many things out there, there's that cause the feel good. Yeah. There's different substances, there's situations, and they cause the feel good, but they have a negative result. Yeah. So whether it's, alcohol or drugs, or, it can even be like fights. There's these endorphins that are released when you get wound up over something, and you get addicted to these endorphins that are released. But if we just go back to the natural oxytocin being released when we're just doing altruistic, then it's fascinating, because our brain is actually happy. And this is one of those situations where it's a positive result, and it's not detrimental.
Yeah, awesome. So our big charge is go do good. And we'll see you next time on the Drama Free Living podcast.